Hey, what's going on everyone? It's me, the weather up there, and welcome to part 3 of the Ocarina of Time Defeat Ganon No SRM tutorial series. It's obviously taken me a lot longer to make this part of the tutorial than I originally thought it would, and I just wanted to apologize for that right off the bat, but thanks for sticking around and tuning in. In part 2, we just finished covering get item manipulation in full, and now in part 3 I'm going to be covering the rest of this Deku Tree segment, including the B1 skip, the Scrubs fight, and the Gohma fight. I'm going to break that down into those 3 parts, and I'll include all the timestamps for that down below if you ever need to come back for a quick reference on any of these tricks. You can just go to the description, click on the timestamp, and get a quick refresher. Alright, so for a quick bit of background information, normally to beat the Deku Tree casually, what you have to do is collect the slingshot from the 2nd floor, climb up to the 3rd floor, and jump down to break the web by the main entrance. Now once you break that web, you end up falling down into the main room of B1, or Basement 1. Now in this main room, there's a raised platform you have to reach that gives you access to Basement 2, where the boss room is. Now casually, in order to reach that raised platform, you have to go through 4 separate puzzle rooms around the back. There's a pretty simple eyeball switch that opens a door. You have to shoot it with the slingshot you just got. And then beyond that room, there's a button you have to hit that lowers the water level, allowing you to reach the other side of that room. There's a pretty simple torch lighting puzzle, and then in the final room you just simply have to burn a web that hides the crawl space that's on the other side of that raised platform in the main room. Now once you go through that crawl space, what you have to do is burn the web on that raised platform, and that's going to give you access to B2, where you have to fight the Scrubs and then beat Gohma. However, using a pretty simple trick called B1 Jump, we're able to actually jump up and grab that raised platform without going through any of those 4 rooms. This allows us to skip Slingshot, as well as most of the puzzle solving in the Deku Tree, and it saves just over 4 minutes actually. So there's a couple different setups for B1 Jump I'll show you. One I don't really want to recommend, but I'm going to show it to you just in case you have a lot of trouble with the other setup. So let's get right into it. Alright, so I wanted to start this part of the tutorial right at the end of the item delay segment. So if you remember from part 2, I've just grabbed the vines with item delay active, and I'm going to kill this Deku Baba and pick up a Deku Nut. Right, and once you pick up that Deku Nut, you have to grab the vines again. And I just wanted to point out that there's essentially like 2 different ways you can grab these vines. You can either grab the vines on this side, where you're closer to that item delay platform, or if you jump far enough, you can grab the vines on this side, where the golden Skulltula is. And the only difference here is once you get to the top of these vines, you're going to have to roll towards the next set of vines a little bit differently. So if you're on this far side, this ends up being like a tiny bit quicker. If you're on this far side, you're going to hold a little bit more left than up left, and you're going to roll pretty immediately. And it's going to have you pointed pretty much straight towards these vines, and then you're going to pull the stick out to do a Navi skip. Alright, if on the other hand you land on this side of the vines, closer to the item delay platform, you're going to hold straight into the left notch, take a few steps, and then roll, and it's going to have you pointed in the same direction. And then once again, pull stick and do Navi skip. Alright, so I like to start my practice for the B1 skip at the top of this second set of vines here. And the reason being is you have to touch this chest, right, before you jump in the water down there. And it can be a little weird, I think, when you're starting out to move along that bridge and touch the chest quickly. But it's really simple. All you do is hold the control stick in the right notch, and you're going to take a few steps and roll once. You're going to take a few more steps and roll again and target during that second roll. So 1, and target. And that's going to have you facing pretty much straight towards the chest. You're just going to adjust and then roll straight. The next part is to jump in the water. And this is another little bit where you can optimize your movement a little bit without really much effort. To jump in the water, you're just going to hold right after you touch this chest. And then in midair, as you're falling, you're going to start holding up left, and then once you pass the rest of that tunnel, you're going to start holding up right. And what that does is it makes Link sort of come out of the water onto this platform, and it's going to make it really easy to get set up for whichever B1 jump setup you end up using. So once again, in full speed, that whole movement looks like this. Touch the chest, hold right, hold up left, and then hold up right. And you're gonna end up right there. From here, you can do one of two different B1 skip setups. All right, so first up is gonna be the C up setup for the B1 jump. This setup is kind of outdated, but I wanted to show it to you just in case the other setup gives you trouble. So what we're gonna do is after this text box, we're gonna roll basically down right. That's gonna get us pointed towards this wall, and now we're gonna target this wall here. So it might be a little hard to notice, but there's a corner right in the wall here by that like black dot by Link's head. There's like a big circle and then a black dot in the middle. That black dot is basically where the corner is. You can kind of see it like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna target the left wall, and then we're gonna move over to the right side of that corner and roll. And as we hit A, you'll notice that Link sort of like scoots along the wall like that. And you want to keep rolling until Link stops moving. And when he stops moving, that's how you know he's basically like directly in that corner. And once you're there, you're going to do 2 backflips, a side hop to the right, and a side hop to the left. And right here, we're going to untarget and hit C up. And now we can adjust Link's angle. And we're going to move and line up the left edge of the B button with that gray line coming from the ceiling right there. You can sort of see there's that gray texture, and there's a white line right where it meets like that raised platform. It's a bit of a precise lineup, and sometimes it's pretty annoying to line up with C-up, so a lot of people don't like this setup. And even if performed optimally, you're still going to lose like 5 seconds doing it this way, but it's good to know. So once you get the lineup, you're going to hit C-up again, and now we're going to target and hit A to do a neutral roll. And now on the second roll, we're going to hit directly into the up notch as we hit A, and then we're going to pull the Deku stick out in midair. And the Deku stick pull is just to help make lighting the stick on fire after the B1 jump a little quicker. So it should look like this. Just like that. And that's the C-up setup for the B1 jump. Alright, so next up is what's called the Tsundere jump. This was found by a runner, Tsundere, and it's sometimes called the Weeb Jump. So what we're going to do here is hold down and roll straight down and target to turn around. And it's going to get us pointed right towards this wall here. Now we're going to target this wall, but you'll notice it's a pretty short wall and you can actually grab this ledge. So when you target it, you have to do it pretty quick. Hold up and let go and target. If you take too much time, Link will climb up, and you can either hold target and just walk back down and then line up, or if you notice it quick enough and you mash A, Link will hop back down immediately, just like that, and you won't waste too much time. But anyway, once you get the target, you have to line up on a texture on this wall, and this setup is a lot quicker, but it's a little tough because this lineup is a little harder, I find, mainly just because there's no like great visual cues for this lineup. But I'll give you a couple that people use. So I think the most common that I see people using is the left corner of Link's shield here. You're essentially trying to line it up with that black line on the wall behind the shield. Hopefully you can see that. You basically want it to like touch that black line as Link goes through this idle animation, and that's going to be a good lineup. I use the very like tip of Link's hat. I draw a line straight up from there, and it basically matches up with this like black smudge texture on the wall. It's not a great visual cue, but that's what I find to be the most helpful. It's a pretty precise lineup, but once you get it down, what you're going to do is you're going to turn to the left, and there's 3 different ways to make this turn. So the first is called a shield turn, and you're going to hold shield and then hold left, and what you're going to do is let go of shield and grab shield again really quickly, and it should look like this. Like that. If you go too quickly, like I did the first time, what you'll notice is, what you'll notice is that Link just doesn't make the turn like that, and you can just try again until you get the turn, and it's no big deal. If you take too long with this turn, you can ruin your setup like that. Link will take a small step during that shield turn, and that can be a little annoying. The whole point of the shield turn is to hopefully avoid moving during your turn to the left. I prefer to do what's called a flick turn, where you just literally flick the control stick into the left notch, and he'll make the turn. It's a little risky, mainly because if you take too long with that flick turn, again, kind of like the shield turn, Link can take a step like that. It's much more common with the flick turns than it is with shield turns, so just be careful of that. You can also get what's called snap back, where every once in a while the control stick will go from the left notch, and as you let go and it goes back to neutral, it can swing and hit the right notch, and Link will turn the wrong way. It's pretty uncommon. There it is. But it's again something to be mindful of. And then the last way to turn is called an ESS turn. With this, as you untarget, you're just going to hold ESS position on the control stick, which is essentially the position on the control stick right outside of neutral. So if you barely touch it, Link will turn on the spot like that. And if you do it right after untargeting, Link will stop at 90 degrees. If you wait too long after untargeting like this, Link will just keep turning. So I don't really like ESS turns, but a lot of people really like them. So that's 90 degrees. So anyway, once you get the lineup, choose one of those 3 ways to line up, and then we're going to move on. Once you turn to the left, you're going to side hop to the left, and now you're going to hit A and pause pretty quickly. What we're looking for is the 3rd frame after this roll. So this is the 1st frame where Link's arms are outstretched like that. That's the 2nd frame, and that's the 3rd frame. So this is the frame you're looking for. It's basically like the 1st frame as Link is like diving forward for the roll. You'll notice his hat kind of has that point to it, and his left arm is straight out to the left like that. So on this frame, what you're going to do is hold up, and you're going to let go of target. And now after you unpause, all you're going to do is hit the Deku stick button. And again, pulling the Deku stick in midair is just to make lighting your stick on fire after this a little quicker. So you're going to pull Deku stick in midair, and then you're going to retarget before you grab the ledge. And it should look like this. All right, so you'll notice that untarget and retarget changed my camera angle a little bit. And it's possible to do this without untargeting like that, but this is just to make, again, lighting your stick on fire easier after the B1 jump. If you don't untarget and retarget midair, you can totally do that. It's just going to make lighting your stick on fire a little harder afterwards, and it's just going to look like this. So notice with this, Link is kind of turned a little bit to the right like that, and you just have a little bit of a different angle. But either way, that's how the Tsundere jump or the Weeb Jump works. A couple troubleshooting points with the Weeb Jump. Most of the issues you're going to have is going to be with the lineup, as long as you're pause buffering this. If you are too far to the right, like say right around here, so you can take a look at where the shield is and where Link's hat is like this. This is going to be too far to the right. And what you'll notice with this setup is what's going to happen is Link is going to jump, but then he's not going to be able to grab the ledge. So he jumps, but he doesn't quite make it to the ledge, and you're going to fall in the water. So if you're ever doing this setup and you jump, but you miss the ledge, all that means is your lineup was too far to the right. So try it again, but try to line up a little further to the left, like right here. Or maybe right here. All right, if on the other hand you are too far to the left, this is where it just becomes a little harder to notice. So let's say you line up, but you're a little too far to the left, like let's say here. So notice where that left corner of his shield is. Notice where the tip of his hat is. We're a little too far to the left. With this setup, what you'll notice is even if we pause buffer to the right frame and we hold up, Link is just going to roll directly into the water. So that's where it becomes a little hard to notice if you're doing this unbuffered, but if you're doing this buffered, then you're able to tell really quickly that you're too far to the left and you can just reline it up. The reason I say if you're doing it unbuffered, it can be a little tricky is if you hold up on the wrong frame, like let's say instead of this frame, you end up holding up on this frame, like one frame late, Link is going to do the exact same thing, where he just rolls right into the water. So that's why I'm going to recommend almost everybody do this buffered, because, you know, doing this unbuffered, again, it's only saving, you know, 2, 4, 6 seconds or so, you know, to do it unbuffered, where being able to just do it buffered is going to really make your consistency much higher in the long run. So anyway, that's a couple troubleshooting points about the Weeb Jump, and now we're going to move on to the torch flip, or actually lighting our stick on fire to burn that web right there. And essentially what we're going to be doing is from right here, whether you did the Sidehop Setup or the Weeb Jump method where you untarget and then retarget in midair, both of those setups are going to give you the same positioning right here. What you're going to do is hold right and do 3 side hops and then walk a little bit extra like this. Walk a little bit extra, and you'll notice you can like kind of see Link poking out from out of bounds just like that. That's kind of what you're looking for. And then what you're going to do is do a backflip and then hit the stick button essentially like as you land on the torch in that backflip. And you're going to do a jump slash, and that jump slash is going to light the stick on fire. It's going to look like this. Essentially like that. You'll notice I missed it the first time. That's a little annoying. You do have to time that that stick pull essentially, or the stick press where you do the jump slash. And if you miss it, you can just move a little bit and try it again. So that's essentially all you're doing. Backflipping and then timing a Deku stick press. You miss it, you just move upright a little bit and then try it again. Until you get it. I used to mash the Deku stick button during this backflip. And that can work as well, but it's a little risky because you risk actually doing a horizontal slash with your Deku stick as you land and breaking your stick, and that's going to really kill a lot of runs. See if I can make that happen real quick. Like that. So if you mash Deku stick, you can risk breaking it like that, and that can really suck. So once again, all you're doing here is side hopping 3 times and walking a little bit extra, and then backflipping and timing the Deku stick press as you land on the torch. Just like that. Alright, so the other method of the torch flip, I just call it the rolling method, but really the only difference is if you do the Weeb Jump setup, but without untargeting in midair. So if I stay targeted the whole time here, I have a different camera angle here, and if I side hop, I'm just going to side hop right off the edge. So we can't do the 3 side hops to get over there. So instead we like kind of roll like right towards this white texture on the wall. So right behind Link there's that white dot, and you want to touch that texture. You don't want to target the wall, but you want to line up with that white texture and turn to the left, and then that's going to give you a similar positioning for the torch flip. And it's just like that. I don't love this setup. This is why I do the untargeted V1 jump, just because I find this lineup to be a little inconsistent. But it does work. So that's essentially the other setup. All right, so in full speed, essentially you're going to roll upright, line up with the white texture, turn to the left, and then do the torch flip. And that's essentially it. All right, a few quick troubleshooting points for the torch flip. If you forget to take your Deku stick out during the B1 jump, or you miss it somehow, if you try to do the torch flip without taking it out, Link is just going to pull a Deku stick in midair. He's not actually going to do the jump slash that you need to light it on fire. So if you forget or you miss it somehow, just make sure that literally at any point before the torch flip, you take your stick out. And the torch flip should work. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. All right, so another thing is if you lose your angle somehow for the torch flip setup, so like let's say you target this Deku Baba and you can't do that like 3 side hop method that you normally do, or if you go for the texture setup and instead of just turning to the left, you accidentally like target this wall, you're gonna lose that angle. And there's a couple quick ways you can like get it back and make the setup work. One is you can target this the post here for the torch. It has like that angle to it, and you can turn around. And if you just like move up a little bit, there it is. It should work. I don't love that angle. I don't find it the most consistent, as you can see. But some people do it. Another thing you could do is hit C up and just like roughly line up the B button in on that like grayish blue texture, and then again just move like, you know, upright a little bit. And that angle should work as well. Last thing you could do is if you are doing the like untarget retarget method and you accidentally target this Deku Baba, you can just go and try to do the texture setup instead. And you know, that's always a good backup as well. Alright, so once we get the torch flip, all we have to do is burn that web and kill this Deku Baba, so we're able to get Deku Nuts for the Gohma fight later on. The movement here is pretty straightforward, but essentially what you're going to be doing is once you get the torch flip, you're going to roll up left and target during that roll. And it's going to get you pointed essentially towards that Deku Baba in the back there. And then from here, you just do 2 more rolls straight forward. And then you're going to do a crouch stab on the Deku Baba. Alright, the only thing you want to be careful of here is to not take damage from the Deku Baba. So if you're too slow on this crouch stab, you could get knocked back and end up falling all the way down this hole, which is going to lose a ton of time because you have to climb all the way back up. So just make sure you're, you know, accurate and quick with that crouch stab. Other than that, it's pretty much it. So from here, from that crouch stab, we're going to break up into 3 different setups for the 2-3-1 Scrubs fight of varying difficulties and speeds. Alright, so the way this Scrubs fight works is that we have to beat them in a specific order, which is 2-3-1. So you could kind of go about it randomly, and as long as you like beat them in that order, you should be good. But we have a few different setups that we do to make the Scrubs fight as consistent and quick as possible. So what we're doing is essentially loading them in a specific order. So what you're going to notice is that as we get close to some Scrubs, they're going to start like loading and shooting at us. And it's kind of based off both your camera angle, like if you're facing them or not, like if they're on camera, as well as just literally your proximity. And then the other thing you need to know is that the 3 setups I'm about to show you are all for critical health. So when you have critical health in this game, the game is going to start like beeping at you, like the health bar beeps at you, and the camera is going to zoom in a little bit. So when the camera zooms in, less of the game area is able to be shown on screen. So because the Scrubs load based on your camera angle, it's going to make them load differently than if you had non-critical health. So for all 3 of these setups, what we're going to do is make sure that we side hop down this hole so that we land and take a full heart as we land. And if we've done everything right, that is going to leave us with critical health, and the camera's going to zoom in and make this Scrubs fight a little bit different than if we had full health. Alright, so first up is just the slow Scrubs. So I just call it slow Scrubs because it's the slowest of the 3 setups I'm about to show you. But it is going to be faster than just kind of going about it randomly. So what we do is after this crouch stab, what we're going to do is turn to the left and target, and then we're going to pick up the Deku Nut. So what that does is when we get the get item cutscene here, Link faces the camera. And so once we're through this text box, we can just target and side hop down. So it just gives us a good angle for the setup. So we're going to move towards the vines a little bit and then side hop down. And we're going to take a full heart of damage as we land. Alright, and so once we take damage, what we're going to do is we want to load the first Scrub, or the one on the left first. And then we're going to move towards the middle Scrub, the right Scrub, and then back towards the left Scrub. So what happens is we move towards this Scrub and avoid its Deku Nut, and then we shield the the second scrubs back. So we beat the second scrub first, and then after that, we're going to move towards the right, and then back towards the left. So having the first scrub shoot at us and avoiding it, it just gives us extra time to get into position for this last shot without getting hit. So it essentially just makes the scrubs fight safer, but you lose about 4 seconds for having the scrubs shoot and then go back in its hole, come back and shoot again. But it makes it pretty safe. So you're going to get through that text box, and then you're just going to roll straight forward and open the door to Gohma. So that's slow scrubs. In full speed, it essentially will look like this. So we're going to side hop down, take damage, and roll towards the first scrub. Target the middle scrub. Target the right scrub. And then back towards the first scrub. So you notice we get extra time to essentially avoid getting hit and dying during the scrubs fight. So it just makes it really safe. And then after those text boxes, we just roll straight forward. And that's it. Alright, so for both of the next two scrub setups, instead of turning to the left before we pick up the Deku Nut, we're instead going to turn to the right. So this time, as we pick up the Deku Nut, the get item cutscene will simply turn Link the other way. And so when we target, we're going to be able to load the scrubs in a slightly different way after we side hop down. Alright, so I'm going to show you intermediate scrubs in full speed first, and then afterwards we'll break it down into a little bit more detail. But essentially what we're going to be doing is side hopping a few times as we land, and then targeting the middle scrub, turning to the right and targeting the right scrub, and then turning down and attacking the last scrub. So what targeting that middle scrub does is it slows down the loading of the other two by just a little bit, giving you a little bit more time to turn to the right and then turn back before getting hit. But it's definitely more risky than the slow scrub strat, because if you're not fast enough, you're going to get hit by one of the Deku Nuts and die, which is going to lose a ton of time. It's hard to do optimally because it's pretty common that you'll miss this last scrub. So that's probably like the most common mistake with it. Either missing this last scrub or potentially, again, getting hit by the rightmost scrub. So now let's break it down into a little bit more detail. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to side hop 3 times as we land and then roll directly to the left and then target the middle scrub as soon as we can. So once we have the middle scrub targeted, we're going to hold shield and we're going to be walking like upright or so. We're going to walk essentially to somewhere between the second and the third scrub, like somewhere around here. So we're pretty close to that second scrub. So it's going to shoot at us. And now after we reflect this first Deku Nut, we have to very quickly turn towards the right and target the right scrub. If we're not quick enough, we could get hit. So it's going to look like this. So you notice you turn around and then target the scrub and hold shield, and we'll reflect that Deku Nut. And now what we need to do is flick straight down and target. And we're gonna be too far away from the last scrub to be able to target it. So we're gonna have to aim. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So we turn down and target. And now what you're gonna notice is that the last scrub is sometimes not directly in front of us. So right now it's a little bit to the right. And so what I'm gonna do is as I'm running forward towards this last scrub, if you look at the input display, I'm kind of moving the control stick a little bit outside of up, just like a little bit to the right. And so what that does is you're going to notice Link starts running more towards that Deku scrub as we do that, and it aims the shield towards the Deku scrub. So that allows us to aim towards it without being able to target it. And if we've done it right, when we reflect it, it should go essentially directly towards that last Deku scrub. And from there, we're just going to roll and then target the last scrub as it gets hit. That last hit is probably the hardest part about this Deku Scrubs setup. So it's going to take a lot of practice being able to actually aim, and like a lot of people will call it the scrub snipe. it's gonna take a lot of practice to like get that snipe down. Sometimes you'll get lucky, and when you turn around, the scrub rather will be directly in front of Link, and you won't have to do that. But you're really gonna want to practice it and be able to respond to quickly be able to aim it right towards that last Deku scrub. So in full speed, once again, it should look something like this. You'll notice that time I had to aim a little bit to the left, so it was just a little bit different that time. But again, it's going to take practice to get that last hit consistent. All right, so finally is going to be the fast scrub setup. So just like with intermediate scrubs, we're going to turn to the right and then pick up the Deku Nut, which is going to turn us around this way. Now, fast scrubs is going to be about 2 seconds faster than the intermediate scrubs and about 4 seconds faster than the slow scrub setup. And again, just like with intermediate scrubs, I'm going to do it in full speed first, and then we'll go into more detail afterwards. The main difference with fast scrubs is that we're not going to be targeting any of the Deku scrubs as we go. We're essentially just going to be hitting them or aiming towards them on the fly. So you're going to notice they shoot at us very quickly, and you have to be able to respond and aim towards each one without targeting, which can be pretty tricky, but we're going to be making a pretty consistent lineup. We're lining up with a specific, like on a specific angle and then on a specific texture, and it allows us to shoot each scrub pretty consistently. All right, so for fast scrubs, there's a few different lineups we can use to make the setup consistent. My favorite was found by Ren. So for Ren's lineup, what we're gonna do is we're gonna side hop down the hole and roll to the left and target during that roll. So this roll is gonna get us pointed somewhere towards that middle scrub, and we're gonna have to adjust our angle. So what we're trying to line up with is a texture on the back wall. So right now, there's this black texture on the back wall to the left of the B button, and that's essentially what you're trying to roll towards. You want to line up with that texture. So you're going to roll 2 more times to get into position. And now the position we're looking for is going to be a texture on the floor. So there's this like reddish, like brown splotch on the ground, essentially right where Link's feet are now, right to the left of Link's feet. And what you want to do is shield up left on that texture. So I'm going to hold up left and shield. And Link is going to point his shield towards that middle scrub when you hold up left like that. So that's going to reflect and kill the second scrub. And now what you've noticed is the rightmost scrub has already shot. Its Deku Nut is just coming onto screen right now. And so because we haven't targeted this middle scrub, that scrub is the rightmost scrub is going to shoot us right away. So in order to be able to reflect its Deku Nut back at it, we're going to have to do a shield turn to the right. So if you remember from the B1 jump setup, the shield turn is going to be done by holding shield in the direction we need to turn in, and then letting go of shield. Link is going to turn to the right and then grabbing shield again. And that is going to reflect the Deku Nut back. So that's going to hit the middle scrub. And now what we need to do is we're going to target, and then we're going to turn around and target and hold shield again. And that's going to get us pointed at the last scrub. So from here we can just run towards the last scrub and target, and we should be good. Sometimes you'll have to do that like snipe setup I was talking about for the intermediate scrub setup. But most of the time, with at least with Ren's setup, you should have a pretty consistent angle towards the last scrub. So once again, in full speed, fast scrubs will look like this. So you'll notice if you get a consistent angle and you get on that texture in front of the second scrub, all you have to do is use the up left notch for the first scrub, the right notch for the second scrub, and then flick down and you'll be able to go straight towards the last scrub. Alright, so for a few quick troubleshooting points for fast scrubs, one very common issue that I've had is, you'll get the right lineup and everything, but then when you go to shield turn, you get too close to that second scrub, and when you get too close to the scrubs, they go back underground. So at this point, that scrub is not going to shoot at you, and you're going to miss, and you're going to get hit by that rightmost scrub. So you can simply combat that by making sure you don't get too close. Just make sure you get a clean lineup on that floor texture and you should be good. Alright, another common issue with the lineup is if you don't get close enough to that middle scrub, you can miss just like that. When you reflect up left, it will actually go just a little bit in front. So if that's the case, you need to make sure you get a little bit closer. Again, just pay very close attention to that floor texture you have to line up with. And that shouldn't happen. Alright, so another really common issue I've had with fast scrubs. This I was really confused about for a minute. But you get, let's say you get the lineup right and everything. So you get the first scrub, and then you get the shield turn for the second scrub. But you know how normally after you reflect this Deku Nut and you target the right scrub before you turn around? If you try to target too soon, like before you hit the Deku Nut, what ends up happening is you'll notice as you target, Link drops the shield for a couple frames. And it's just enough time to get hit by that right scrub's Deku Nut. So just make sure you target after you hear the Deku Nut hit your shield. Otherwise you're gonna get hit. Alright, so once you finish the scrubs fight, whether you did slow scrubs, intermediate, or fast scrubs, the last thing to do in this segment of the run is the Gohma fight. So what we're going to do is just simply roll forward and open the door. And now what we're doing in this Gohma fight is called a double KO, or a double knockout. So essentially what we're doing is killing Gohma and dying on the exact same frame. And the whole point of that is that after the Gohma death cutscene, when we die, we get warped to the entrance of the Deku Tree. So that allows us to leave really quickly and head to the Lost Woods, where we can fill our bottle with bugs for the wrong warp later on in the run. So what we need to do is make sure we have 1/2 of a heart here. If we have more when we try to do the double KO, it's not going to work. So make sure you have 1/2 of a heart. And now we're going to take a Deku stick out and then jump slash here into the Gohma fight. So we're doing power crouch dabs on Gohma, and the whole point of that is so that we're able to kill Gohma really quickly, like in one cycle. So this jump slash is for the power crouch dabs. I also like to pause here to equip my Deku Nuts in my bottle. You have to pause and equip them somewhere, so this is where I choose to do it. As long as you have your Deku Nuts before the Gohma fight, you're good. But anyway, after that, you unpause and enter Gohma's room. And now, in order to start the actual fight, what you have to do is hit C up and then look at the ceiling where Gohma is. So you hit C up and then hold slightly down on the control stick. And you have to hold it there just for a bit to start the fight. Alright, so now we're going to get into the actual Gohma fight. I'm going to do it in full speed first, and then I'll slow it down, just like with everything else. Alright, so just like that. So you notice at that last hit, I jump slashed into Gohma's eye, and I took damage as I touched Gohma. So you might have heard Link scream there, and that's how you made sure you got the double knockout. Alright, so that's how the fight works. You're going to notice right after this cutscene, Link is going to collapse as well. And that's the double knockout. So now we're going to get into a little bit more detail on how the double knockout actually works. Alright, so the way the Gohma fight works is that we need to deal a total of 10 damage in order to kill her. And we want to do all of that in one cycle. So in a normal Gohma fight, Gohma is going to come down from the ceiling to the floor here. And then once we deal damage, she's going to climb back up to the ceiling, lay some eggs, and then come back down for a second cycle. So in order to do it in one cycle, we're going to do a Deku Stick jump slash into this main room here, and that's going to store 4 damage to our power crouch stab. Now, once the fight actually starts, what we're going to do is move forward just to get a little closer to Gohma so that our crouch stabs are in range, just because they don't have a lot of range to begin with. And then what we're going to do is throw the first Deku Nut, which is going to stun Gohma. Immediately after we throw that first Deku Nut, we're going to hold shield and do a crouch stab, and that's going to deal 4 damage. And then immediately after that first crouch stab, we're going to let go of shield and throw the second Deku Nut. That's going to stun her again, but now before the second crouch stab, we have to hesitate just a little bit, because if we crouch stab too soon, it's going to hit Gohma while she's still invincible from being stunned, so it's not going to do damage. So we're going to hesitate just a little bit, do that crouch stab, and then we're going to let go of shield, target, and do jump slash. Just hit A to do a jump slash, and that's going to deal the final 2 damage and kill her. One cycle Gohma is all about timing, so if you mistime any of these inputs, one cycle is not going to work, so it's just going to take a lot of practice. And it's going to look something like this. So Gohma is going to come down from the ceiling, and then I'm going to move a little bit closer and throw the first Deku Nut, and then I'm going to slow things down a little bit. Alright, so I threw the first Deku Nut, and now we're going to immediately do that first crouch stab. And then once that hits, I'm going to let go of shield and immediately throw the second Deku Nut. Alright, so that's the second Deku Nut, and now again we have to hesitate a bit for the second crouch stab. But then we're going to do the second crouch stab, and that's going to hit, and then we're going to target, let go of shield rather, target, and then hit A for the jump slash. And that's the double KO. So there's no easy way to practice this. You basically just have to do it in full speed, and then essentially to like see what goes wrong and try to fix it. So there's a few main issues you're going to run into. All right, so one of the most common issues you're going to run into is doing that second crouch stab too soon, like I was talking about. So if you do that too soon, you're going to hit Gohma while she's still invincible, and it's going to look a little something like this. Alright, so what you're going to notice is that the first crouch stab hit, the jump slash hit, but that second crouch stab, while I guess like the sword hit her eye, she didn't actually take damage from it. So if that happens, she's going to go up for a second cycle. So easy way to fix it is just try to delay that second crouch stab by just a few frames, and it should work. Alright, so another really common mistake is essentially trying to throw the second Deku Nut while you're still holding shield from that first crouch stab. So while you do have to throw that Deku Nut really quickly, like immediately after the first crouch stab, if you're still holding shield, Link is unable to use Deku Nuts. So you just have to make sure it's pretty clean where you do the first crouch stab, let go of shield, then throw the Deku Nut, and do the second crouch stab. So it happens to me a lot, and if it ends up happening to you, it'll look a little bit something like this. So what you're going to notice is that, you know, even though you're letting go of shield in between the crouch stabs, because you're trying to throw the Deku Nut too soon, Link just like stands up and then goes for the second crouch stab. And because you don't stun Gohma a second time, we're essentially not moving quick enough, and by the time we try to do that jump slash to finish her, she's already moving away for the second cycle. So just easy way to remedy that is to just make sure after that crouch stab you let go of shield, then throw the Deku Nut. Alright, so finally another really common error. It's kind of similar where it's essentially just screwing up inputs by accident, because everything's happening so fast during the one cycle Gohma fights that before these inputs just become muscle memory, you can't really think about them as you're doing them. So it's really easy to screw things up. So what happens here is that you put the sword away before the final jump slash, and that happens if you hit A before you target. So if that happens, it's going to look like this. So you notice that time, right before that jump slash, Link stands up and puts the sword away. This happens to me a lot. It happens to a lot of people, and it's essentially if you just try to rush the jump slash. You know, some people mash A for the jump slash, and if you do that before you actually fully target Gohma, Link's just going to put his sword away. So just make sure it's a really clean input of you know, doing that jump slash, letting go, targeting, and hitting. Make sure it's just all really clean, and it should work out. Alright, so that is the double KO Gohma fight using 2 Deku Nuts. So there is technically a way to do this fight using just 1 Deku Nut, and you're going to save a little bit of time, but it's much riskier, so I'm not really going to recommend people do it during like PB attempts, but it's kind of fun unless you're like a top level runner going for like top times, like world record type of pace. There's not really much of a point in doing this during PB attempts, but I'm going to show it to you anyway because it's kind of fun. Essentially the way it's going to work is by timing 2 crouch stabs and a jump slash very quickly, and if you do it right, you're able to like do all 10 hits of damage using just 1 Deku Nut. What makes it risky is that if you're too slow, that jump slash is going to register just a little bit too late as she's essentially like climbing back up for the second phase. So in order to do it, you have to get up close, throw the first Deku Nut, and then immediately do the first crouch stab. If you're too late on that first crouch stab, by more than like a frame or 2 maybe, I guess, the setup's not going to work. So the first crouch stab has to be immediate, and then you need to time the second crouch stab so that you essentially hit her as soon as the invincibility frames end. So it's kind of similar. If you try to do that crouch stab too soon, you're going to hit her when she's still invincible from taking damage from the first crouch stab. So you have to time that second crouch stab, and then again, immediately you have to target and jump slash. If you're too late on the jump slash, again, you're gonna hit her as she's starting to climb up. So it's essentially 2 frame perfect crouch stabs followed by a frame perfect jump slash. You technically have, I guess, a frame or 2 of leniency during the whole setup, but it's pretty tricky. So if you do it right, hopefully that I do this right, it should look something like this. Yeah, just like that. So you notice just 1 Deku Nut, and then you have to time the 2 crouch stabs and then jump slash. And if you do it right, you can kill her with 1 Deku Nut, but it's only going to save about 0.6 or 0.7 seconds. Which isn't a ton of time, obviously, but it's pretty cool. So the main issues you're going to have with it is essentially just taking too much time in between the inputs. So whether you whether you do the second crouch stab too late, or if you jump slash too late, you really have to jump slash immediately after the second crouch stab hits. Really, with either of those like mistakes, I guess, it will kind of look like this. Where so it's gonna look like that, where Link's gonna do the jump slash, but it's not gonna hit because as soon as Link's like in the air, Gohma's gonna actually start crawling away already, and you're just too slow. Same thing if you do that first crouch stab too late. It's the same thing's gonna happen. Alright, so another thing that can happen is if you do that second crouch stab too soon, it looks like this. So you'll notice kind of like what happened when you did the second, or the second crouch stab too soon after throwing the second Deku Nut for the other setup. The first crouch stab hits and the jump slash hits, but that second crouch stab hits her while she's invincible. So it's kind of the same thing there. So it's fun to practice. Essentially, you just have to do those 2 crouch stabs and the jump slash very quickly, and you're able to make it work. But that's the 1 Deku Nut setup for the double KO. Alright, so that is it for this part of the run. The last thing I wanted to mention in this part of the tutorial is that after the double KO, we're going to get a game over screen. And it's going to ask if we want to save, and we can say yes or no, and then it's going to ask us if we want to continue, and we're going to say yes. If we save here, we're going to lose about a half a second to a second, but if we scroll over to no save, and then continue, it's basically a free bit of time save. The only thing that you want to be careful of is that you don't accidentally select no save and then no continue, which has happened to me just a handful of times, and it's basically equivalent to a reset. If you don't want to bother with it, you can just mash A here, and you're just going to save the game and then continue. You'll just lose a little bit of time for it. But either way, once you get past that window, you're going to be at the entrance to the Deku Tree again, and we're just going to roll down and leave the Deku Tree, and then we're going to be making our way to the Lost Woods, where we're going to pick up bugs for our bottle that we're going to use in the wrong warp later on in the run. Alright you guys, that concludes part 3 of the Defeat Ganon No SRM tutorial. So thank you guys very much for waiting for this video. I had a lot of fun making it, so I'm really looking forward to making part 4. Part 4, we're going to cover the movement to the Lost Woods as well as the movement back. And I'm going to cover both Wesses, including the West to Lost Woods as well as Waterfall Wess, which is going to be a much more advanced strat. But stay tuned. Hopefully it won't take too long to make that video. I know I said that at the end of part 2 about this video, but I mean it this time. So stay tuned, and thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.